Won 57 major championships. That's 30-some nationals and 12 Pan American Games, 12 World Championships.
Tell me about growing up. Where were you born?
Okay, I was born in Moorestown, New Jersey, 9 miles from Philadelphia. And born in 1938.
Your parents did what?
My father was a bricklayer and my mother was a mother.
What were your fun times in high school in New Jersey?
Well, I did work out. I was known as the weightlifter.
Even in high school?
Even in high school.
When did you start?
In 1948, 10 years old, I hit a baseball down a driveway. And at the end of that driveway was George's gym in a garage. And I knew the fellas that were training there. And they encouraged me to try lifting a weight they were lifting. And I did it with no problem, and they talked me into continuing.
At 10 years old?
Right.
What was there about weightlifting that hit a chord with you?
Maybe the fact that I could do it so well.
And that was the start of it?
That was the start.
And then how well did you do in high school, competitive speaking?
In New Jersey, the competition was pretty rough, but I placed top 3 in quite a few meets.
And then it came time to graduate.
The Navy recruiter came and said, if you sign the paper and report to the Navy base in Philadelphia next week, we'll give you your graduation a month early. I said, right here.
And how did you fit in with basic training in the Navy?
I had no problem. It was fun. Yeah, I never regretted being in the Navy. There were some inter-service championships, which I won, and I could go out to competition on the weekends.
And then when you went to Great Lakes to do medical, to take your medical training, what did that involve?
There was 16 weeks of first aid and pharmacy, everything.
And then once you finished up there, where did they send you?
To the Naval Hospital in Philadelphia, to work in the psychiatric center.
And that's not far from home.
No, it's 9 miles.
And you get married and you're still with the Navy?
Right.
And how much longer do you put in with Uncle Sam?
Went in 55, got out in 76.
And where else did you go? Where else did you serve?
Twice in Vietnam, 4 or 5 ships.
From the boat to MUFC?
Yep.
And what'd you do there?
It's called a mortuary assistant, but I was an assistant to the medical examiner.
Had to have been a fascinating job.
It was.
Yeah. Well, how do you end up in the upstate?
We followed the grandchildren.
And you've been in Anderson County for how long?
I guess 25 years.
It's amazing, isn't it? And during all this time, at some point or another, you're still lifting weights.
Yeah, I didn't stop. As far as the nationals.
Tell the audience what it is that you do exactly.
Okay, for most of the time I did the snatch, floor to arm's length in one motion. The clean and jerk, clean it to your chest and jerk it over your head. About 15 years ago, I fell on my one arm. I tripped, fell on a root, had a shotgun in one hand, fell on the other. They did an MRI, and the MRI said, oh, you really hurt that shoulder. He said, you've got nothing to fix. So they did a complete shoulder replacement. That's a plate with 5 screws bolted up here, a bar going inside of your arm and a ball, and they come together. They said, but you won't be able to weightlift anymore. So I said, well, okay, if I can't weightlift, then I'll power lift. The bench press, the squat, deep knee bend, and the deadlift. And so I started doing those. Of course, even now I can't bench very much with the artificial shoulder. At this very bar, or rack, I was sitting there just had 45 pounds on the bar, just flipping it up. And I thought, gee, that doesn't hurt. And it feels good. I wonder if I could push it up. And I thought, I could do this. So I went back to the doctor, and Dr. Posta in Greenville, and said, hey, I seem to be able to do this, not as good as before, but good enough. He said, well, if it doesn't hurt, and it never hurt from surgery day on, he said, give it a shot. And so I got back to doing that, but by then I had been national and world champion in powerlifting. So I said, geez, well, why quit this? So unless the meets conflicted on same day, I continued to do weightlifting and powerlifting.
And when we're talking about this, how much weight are we talking about winning with? What are some of the numbers?
Young gun numbers or old numbers? I could lift 1,000 pounds off that rack and walk out with it. When I was younger.
Yeah, 1,000 pounds.
Now maybe 500. I don't know.
At 83.
Yeah.
Now, when you compete at these tournaments that you go to, who are you competing against?
See, there are quite a few people my age that are still.
Are there really?
I could show you my list. One year I went 7 years in a row without winning. Second, third. During the time I was actually active in the military, I didn't train as hard. And sort of interesting, one year I was stationed in Beaufort, the air station there, and had ideal training conditions, except there's no gym on the base. So I went to Paris Island and trained with their team. And I got to where I was good enough to make the Olympic trials. And I was ranked in the top 10 in the country. So I got my papers and I brought them to the commanding officer, Marine. Now, Marines, the Navy corpsmen are stationed with the Marines. And I said, sir, I'd like to go to the Olympics. Here's my paper. It just has to be sent to the World's Fair in New York for the final trial. And he said, yeah, doc, no problem. We'll take care of it. So I trained and trained, lifting well. I think I was top 3 in the world at the time. And suddenly I get a notice. There's a 4-striper coming from Washington, D.C. to see you, Chief. Actually, I was second class then. And so I met him. He said, we have good news for you. He said, you don't have to go to the Olympics and represent the Marine Corps. We've got it fixed so you can go and represent the Navy. And I said, well, that's fine. He said, and we're going to get your paperwork together and get it in next week. I said, that's fine, sir. It was due in Washington 6 weeks ago. So I didn't get to go to the Olympics.
You didn't get to go?
No.
Because of paperwork?
Paperwork.
Wow. This weightlifting at 83, does this just say you have good genetics for this? Because my guess is that your average 83-year-old brought in here couldn't do squat.
No, in fact, well, I can't show you with the weight because we're sitting, but in the snatch, like in the Olympic lift, it's not so much how much you can do, but can you do it? In other words, sometimes it's harder just to do the weight. Most people can't straighten their arms out, and I, got the phony arm here to work with.
But that's not something they mention when you're in competition. Now, here's old Tom from down in South Carolina, and he's only got one good shoulder.
Sometimes they mention, depends on the MC going,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a remarkable surgery that he did. In my case, because I've been training so hard and long, my bones are hard. So he broke his stainless steel bolt when he was screwing the thing into my shoulder.
Where do you go next? Where's your next competition?
Well, after the Nationals, because of the COVID, they don't have any advanced schedule. The weightlifting, snatch and clean and jerk, there are no scheduled events the rest of the year that I can see in the newsletter that came yesterday. It might well be until the end of the year before they have a world meet.
But you're going to Gatlinburg in a not too distant future.
Gatlinburg, yeah, in just a few months.
And that'll be for what?
The national championship.
And how many will show up, do we think, to compete in that?
300 to 500, I'd say.
You have competed against people how old?
95.
That's incredible, isn't it?
It was. He'd probably still be lifting, but he got ballroom dancing and slipped on some wax and fell down and broke his hip and didn't survive.
Do you have a diet that you take or just come to the gym?
I need a diet.
For you to come out of Gatlinburg successful, what have you got to do? What have you got to lift to win?
I think that if I can do a knee bend and deadlift over 300 pounds, I should be well shaped. I competed against a Russian team in Las Vegas, And they had 200 lifters there just on the Russian team with their coaches and doctors. I did 250 pounds at a time when I was capable of doing 500. And so the Russian put a man up against me, and I destroyed him, beat him by hundreds of pounds. He got red-faced. He said, "How can you do this? It's there. You hold the official world record of 250 pounds and you do 500. You destroyed me. Why do you do this?" I said, "Well, I just took it easy that day. There wasn't anybody there." Because obviously at 80, sometimes there's nobody, or at 70. And
so whatever you lift is a winning lift.
right, if you do it correctly,
Yeah.
it's a winning lift. And this patch, there's only 2 of these in the world. Someone that has the U.S. Hall of Fame and the Pan American.
2, and you're one of them.
Yep.
Living right here in Anderson County. It's been a pretty good run, hasn't it?
Yeah, I actually consider retiring at times. I've got a little bit of arthritis setting in, and but I find with just 3 fingers I can pull 400 pounds up, so that keeps me going.